You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K25. It's myself, Momutsi, alongside me, three-time NBA champion, Mr. BJ Armstrong, and our weekly guest on a Monday, the man with all the front office knowledge in the world, it's Mr. Scott Perry. How you fellas doing?
I'm alive, bro. I'm on the right
Yeah,
side of
yeah,
the
yeah.
turf, so I'm doing good, man.
We
So
we usually we
I,
usually start with some NFL talk, but I know Scott ain't trying to hear that today, so we're gonna
no,
keep it
no,
moving.
I'm done talking the NFL for a while. So,
Yeah. We're gonna move right past that. I got a couple messages in our Discord community. And the first one was from AG, who's our resident Brooklyn Nets fan, and he
okay.
said he said, "Tell Isaiah Collier that I love him for scoring the game winner and winning the Jazz the tank off against the Nets." And
Hmm.
Andy Williams, our resident Jazz fan, replied saying, "Tell him he played a great game, but I would have preferred the loss." So it's hilarious that the Nets fans and the Jazz fans both wanted to lose the game last night. If any of you didn't see it, it was a very
No.
interesting game because Isaiah Collier waved off Colin Sexton with less than 20 seconds left in the game, only to get an 8-second violation. They had a little heated exchange on the
Uh-huh.
bench. But then Isaiah came back into the game and split the two defenders, got to the rack, and made the layup that won the game for the Jazz. BJ, what were your thoughts watching this? Because just the other day we were on the show talking about not every point guard needing to be a prolific three-point shooter, and there Isaiah is winning the game with a layup going to the hoop.
Well, I'm just going to take this perspective. In that conversation that we had, I think just a week ago about what is required
Yeah, on
to play
Friday,
that
yeah.
position. Yeah, to play that position. When we draft these young players, Scott has, he understands this better than most, is we say we're going to draft them and then we're going to develop. Okay. All right. Now, now, I'm just going to stop there. So we draft these young people with the idea we have all of these developmental coaches. We have a league, right? The G League. We have literally, I don't know, 20 or more coaches now, Scotty.
It looks like it, yeah. But
Well, you certainly
you
have
got
more
8 to 10. You got 8 to 10. You got 8 to 10 over there in some capacity for
in
sure.
some capacity. Okay.
Hmm.
So here we are going through the process. And then we start complaining about players who aren't, they're not complete players yet. So, Isaiah Collier is a young player. And Scott, I'm going to throw this to Scott. But this is part of the process. And suddenly, he has a game last night. He has, I think, 23, 7, and 7, I believe, last night in a game.
Hmm.
Plays 37 minutes in an NBA game on a back-to-back, I might add. And you're just seeing the process. Now, I always say it takes about 25 games to figure out what's really going on. And then all of a sudden, around 35 or 40 games is kind of where you began to pick and choose what you can do, provided you have talent. When I say talent, your initial talent would be the physicality of the game, right? Are you fast enough? Are you strong enough? You'll figure out what you can do. And then you begin to just get the experience, which you're clearly lacking. That's why, you're a young player. So it was a good first step. He's had some ups and downs in the league, like all players do. Not some, all players do. And then you begin to have the consistency to say, this is who you are. And then that's what we call a professional, right? If you are a 10, 5, and 5 guy, well, do that every night. If you are a 25 and 5 guy, do that every night. So, but it was a good game. I mean, Utah clearly is developing players. They are developing players. they're clearly in a space where you can go there and be a starter as a rookie. So great first game. I was really happy for him. And he's very fortunate to be in a situation where he's playing in his first year, which is invaluable. I mean, that's for him to have this opportunity is remarkable, and he's taking advantage of it.
It's awesome. And when you draft young players like an Isaiah Collier, you want to see a steady trajectory up. And you have to aid in that as an organization. Because as BJ knows and understands, there's going to definitely be ups and downs to any young player's rookie season. Like I said, I don't care who you are. And in Isaiah's case, he definitely has experienced some lows and he's had to play in the G League, but he's responded well when he's played in the G League. So when you have a game like he had last night and hits a game winner, what you know and what you're going to see is a more confident player, a guy that's saying that kind of, oh, I belong here moment. That was that for him last night. Now the key will be for him. He doesn't have to come back and have 23 points the next game, but just come back and play well. Come back and play well. He didn't have to hit the game winner the next game, but come back and play well. Start stacking good, solid performances and play to your strengths. See, that's one thing, young players, you hear all the noise right now. When they're coming in the door, oh, you got to shoot threes. You got to shoot so many corner threes and elbow threes and all this stuff. No. You play to your strength this year one. And you're down in the practice time and at night, you work on your weaknesses. And you might not start bringing some of the things out that you don't do well this year until next season. Play to your strengths to right now, to the rest of the year. And then you continually add moving forward. We live in this microwave society that everybody wants everything done right away. I like what he's doing. And I like when a player, and a young player like this in particular, has to go through some adversity early in his career to see how he responds. Because this NBA season, as we all know, is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And you have to be able to stay level, as I would say, and bounce back from poor performances and continue to, if it's a great performance, continue stacking them. So congrats to Isaiah.
He just turned 20 a couple months ago. This was his sixth start in the NBA, his 29th game overall. Definitely an upward trajectory. But in the NBA, the superstars kind of get all the attention, all the headlines, right? But Ryan77 wants to know, who is the most exciting player for you to watch that goes under the radar? So not a huge household name player, but who do you like watching and you just enjoy watching their game?
Under the radar player?
How can you be under the radar?
Well, I mean, outside of the obvious, I like watching Steph Curry. I like watching Anthony Edwards. Who are some of the lesser known names to a casual fan that you think are exciting to watch?
Well, I think he may be an all-star this year. I really love the kid, Jalen Williams from OKC.
Okay.
Right? I mean, he may be an all-star this year, but I've always enjoyed watching his, I was like, I remember like a year or two ago, I was like, oh, wow. Like, let me just watch him. I just wanted to, as they said, I wasn't familiar with his skill set. He just kind of caught my eye, so he's one of the, like, I watched him the other night and he's guarding the five. Like, he's playing the backup five right now.
Like in an ideal world, he'd be your two. But OKC have him at the four. Then, when Hartenstein's out the game, he'll play the five.
Five.
Right.
So he is one of my players that I'm saying, when you say a jack of all trades, he's like a jack of all trades. He plays a point guard position. He guards all the positions and he competes. Like, I think that's probably why I didn't know him as well. I had no idea that he was that level of a competitor. I mean, he competes, especially on the defensive end. I saw him guard Julius Randle the other night or one night. Right. And I was like, oh, wow, he doesn't mind the level of physicality. He just always does something that I'm constantly like, oh, I got to give him more credit. So he's one of my favorite players now to watch.
Yeah. Along those lines, I just thought of a player because I'm trying to think of guys that I didn't work with. So I want to be
impartial.
Impartial. I'm being impartial. But this player, Jalen Suggs, I
Yes.
love the
Everyone's a
trajectory of
Jalen
him.
nowadays. Everyone's
Exactly.
a
Everybody's
Jalen
a
in the NBA
Jalen.
nowadays.
But he, I love to see when a player comes in the door. Again, we talked about Isaiah Collier with the ups and downs, the struggles, but you talking about a competitor, and this kid has gotten better, has improved his game each and every year. His shooting has continued to trend upwards. Outstanding defender. He should be a candidate to be on the all defensive team for sure. I think he's one of the top 2 or 3 defensive point guards in the league right now. He
Mm-hmm.
contributes to winning. This
Mm-hmm.
team continues to win, and they were without their 2 top players. But he's not going to cheat you on the effort. And you've heard me say this often. I love watching two-way players, guys that are going to just leave it all out there. And if the casual fan has paid a lot of money for a ticket, they don't want to be cheated by effort. If they go see this young man play, they're going to see a guy that leaves it all out on the floor, whether it's on a Tuesday night in November or a Thursday night in March. It doesn't matter. If that guy's in uniform and playing, he's going to give you a terrific effort, and he continues to get better. So Jalen Suggs would be my guy.
My pick for this is a player who I think is going to be back on everyone's radar pretty soon because he was on everyone's radar when he came into the league as a high pick in the draft. But he was on a awful team, so he kind of got forgotten about and he had a few injuries. But Cade Cunningham over the past month
Hey,
plus has been
okay.
playing electric basketball. He had 22, 17, and 10 the other night to go along with 2 blocks and a steal against the Raptors. In the month of January, he's averaging 25, 9, and 7 with a steal and a half a game. He has been playing amazing basketball for this Pistons team, who, what are they now over their last 10? What, 8-2 over the last 10 games? He's
Yes.
been playing fantastic basketball. And obviously, you guys know me because I know, Scott, you was going to expect me to say Alperen Şengün is my favorite player to watch under the
Exactly.
radar.
That's
But
right.
I
Exactly.
love players that play with their back to the basket. I love the post-up game. And Cade is one of the few point guards who has size at that position, who utilizes that and backs down the smaller guards and gets to his post game. He's got some nice fades. He goes to work on that block. And I love watching Cade play. And I think he 100% should be an all-star this season. I want to see him on that all-star team.
So Cade is channeling his inner Mo Moonsey, is what you're talking about. He's
Some would
playing
say.
with his back to the basket.
Some would say. I'm too old school, man.
Hey,
What
you're
can
too
I
old
say?
school.
What can
No,
I say?
look, Cade is playing terrific. One thing that stands out about Cade to me, going back to when I saw him in high school, his year in college at Oklahoma State, and throughout all of the turbulent times here in Detroit, they've done a lot of losing, and now it looks like they've turned the corner, started to win, obviously win some games, and they're above 500 for the first time in a long time. His confidence, he does not lack for confidence, and it comes through in how he plays and performs, and kudos to him, and hopefully he continues to have a successful season.
It's funny. I mean, we're funny. Actually, I was laughing as well when we say the term old school.
Right.
Scott and I are old enough to have played in the era where you actually could hand check.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And when you were a guard in that era and you were hand checking, you had to learn how to play protecting the ball because someone could actually check you with, they would put their hand on your hip and you had to learn how to play looking at the court from a side view
Yeah.
because of the hand checking, right? It's not that we wanted to play that way. It was the only way that you could play and protect the ball and deliver the ball to at least half of the court. And then if you wanted to go to the other side, you had to either pull away, then as a defender, you close the gap, and then you would do the same thing on the other side. And as Mo said that, I realized, I was like, wow, how cool would it have been if you played and no one could touch you?
Right.
Just think about that, Scott. Scott,
Yeah.
you and I played in an era where we weren't allowed to just come
You
down.
would have loved to play offensively, but you would have got so frustrated being a defender in this situation, though, because as a defender, you really can't do anything.
Well, if you want to win, you got to figure that out,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you got to figure that out. That's one thing. That's one thing. If you're a winning basketball player, you have to adapt.
Mhm.
Okay, you have to adapt. But as you said that, Mo, I was thinking to myself, wow, how cool would that have been? You can just sit at the top of the floor and you can actually face players up because you can't impede their progress. And it just reminded me, it's not really old school. They changed the rules. I mean, it was a rule change
Yeah.
that affected the game. It wasn't like the players suddenly started learning how to dribble. Alvin Robertson is guarding you. You're not going to be dribbling the ball in front of him talking about, I'm going to cross him over. That's not happening. That's not happening. I mean,
Could you imagine Isaiah Thomas?
That's what I'm saying. I was
playing today with nobody being able to touch him.
You know what? That's another conversation.
Conversation. You're right. Exactly.
But
Exactly. If
just
people
wanted
don't realize
Yeah.
how great he was with the ball and strong and all those kind of things, and doing that in an era where
Yeah.
people physically could try to beat him up on the perimeter, and now
and
couldn't touch him.
Oh man, there's a lot of players that you would look
Yeah.
at
Oh, no
differently.
question. He just stands out because he just, to me.
But on the rule change, so no, it was just the why of the rule change. You know what I mean? But for the sake of the narrative, right? We don't want to disrupt the narrative. We'll just say it's old school basketball, right?
Well, according to the old school rules, how about that? How about that? Find the middle ground here.
Well, hey, let's clarify to those who have influence over the game. Now, no one was complaining about it, but the rules committee, which we can. Scott Perry was on the rules committee. Hey, let's ask him when the rules committee come down. How did he vote? How did he vote?
Another player who I think not so much under the radar because everyone knows him, but I think maybe the most underappreciated player in the NBA for me is Russell Westbrook. And if you look at what he's done over his last 4 games, 21, 10 and 7, 25, 11 and 10, 19, 6 and 8, 26, 9 and 6. And don't forget, this is a guy that just a couple years ago, people were talking about him being out of the league. I remember distinctly, someone went back to one of my old tweets the other day. And then, they sent me the tweet, and it was when, I think was it Dave McMenamin on ESPN? He sat up there on national TV and called Westbrook a vampire who was sucking the blood out of the locker room. It turns out that Russell Westbrook's not a vampire, and maybe there were other factors at play in that Lakers locker room. But the narrative that was pushed out by the media, blaming Russell Westbrook for that struggles, because to me it looks like the Lakers are in the same place as they were when they had him and when they're not having him. But it's nice to see him now in Denver. The synergy between him and Jokic is simply fantastic. The way that Jokic manages to pick him out with his cuts off the ball to make his life a little easier, and the way that he finds Jokic in return is fantastic. But EO says, should Russell Westbrook win the most improved award this season?
To answer the question, I don't think he's going to win the most improved player. I mean, you're talking about a one-time.
I don't think that's ever happened. An MVP
Exactly.
winning MVP first and then most improved.
Yeah, and so I don't think that people would even look at him in that vein. Now, if you're talking about comeback or bounce back player of the year, if that is what that's a little something different. But let me just make one quick comment on Russell. BJ used the word when he was talking about the kid Jalen Williams from OKC, and I used it talking about Jalen Suggs from Orlando. Competitors. Russell Westbrook was one of the greatest competitors for sure of this generation.
No, it still is.
And it still is. And I'm just saying,
in year 17.
You cannot take that away from him. So all this about, vampire and all like that, I never subscribed to that about him just because he competed so hard. He left it all out on the floor night in and night out, and he's done it for What year is this for Russell now? 13, 14?
No, it's like
17.
17.
17. Yeah.
17. Okay, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
getting old,
I mean,
Scott.
he just got, yeah. And so he continues to provide that effort at that age. And that's, and when you're getting up there in age like that for a guard, and BJ knows that, it's unbelievable. Not only the physical stamina, but the mental makeup that this guy has exhibited throughout his career, man. I've always had a ton of respect for him just because of the competitor that he is, and it's great to see him playing well for Denver, and he's been an important pickup for him thus far. We'll see what happens as they move forward and get into the playoffs.
Denver are 13-4 when Russell Westbrook starts for them. Surely this has got some sort of fire under Jamal Murray, seeing the impact that Russell Westbrook's been bringing, because Jamal's impact this season in particular has been extremely underwhelming.
Yeah, Jamal, I know has been battling a lot of injuries over the last couple of years. So we don't, so I hesitate to, and I know he hasn't performed up to Jamal Murray standards, but I hesitate to weigh in too heavily on him
Mm.
because I really don't know what he's really going through from a physical standpoint, which in turn can impact what's going on up here mentally, where his body is at. And so I think he's struggling right now. When I watch him play, not only there may be some struggles with his body, but when you're talking about the mental here, his confidence. I'm looking at a player that is not as confident as what I'm used to seeing him play as, and so hopefully he's able to regain that. And I think playing alongside a guy like Russell ultimately is going to help him because Russell's not going to relent. He's going to keep coming, keep coming. So if he wants to keep up, he's got to figure it out. And I believe he's too good a player not to figure it out.
BJ, what's that dynamic like? When you get a new teammate who's playing really well and almost taking some of your minutes potentially, does that then force you or someone on your team to step up their game to ensure that they maintain their spot? Or just from the player side of things, what's that dynamic like?
First of all, the Denver Nuggets, they're not in a situation with a player like Jokic where all of a sudden you're figuring out what we're trying to do. Jokic, whatever team he goes to for the remainder of his career, they will be viewed with a championship level lens. Okay, let's establish that right away. Now, Jamal Murray, we don't know what's going on. And Scott made a valuable point is if you're not in that locker room every single day, you really can't comment. But for the sake of what we think is
Mm-hmm.
going on,
Right.
I thought that was fair. We saw Jamal Murray over the summer, this past or in last summer, I should say, where something didn't look right with him during the Olympics.
Right.
I, something was now, did he play? Yes. But something didn't look right because we saw Jamal Murray just what is it, a couple years now? 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, where he was playing, I've always called him the best player that hasn't been named an all-star yet.
No question. Mm-hmm.
That's what I've come to expect with Jamal. Then this year, he's had a slow start, and sometimes that happens, whatever the case may be. But what I do love about what Coach Malone has done is he's allowed Jamal to play through this to get to where he needs to be. Thank goodness for Russ because they've lost some significant players over the last 2-3 years due to salary
Yes.
situations, or they've made a decision to go in a different direction financially as an organization. I don't look at this as a challenge at this stage of your career. When you have a player of Jamal's caliber and what that player is capable of doing, and Coach Malone certainly has been around, you got to figure out how to complement that player. Now, Russell, let's remember now, Russell has been a lead guard. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer
Mm-hmm.
as a point guard in this league. Now you're asking him to change positions. I don't know if Jamal Murray will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I know Russell Westbrook will.
No question.
So I'm giving the coaching staff credit of of doing what, in my opinion, coaching is all about. Find that. Don't tell me what the guy can't do. Don't tell me what the problem is. Let's figure out how to get these guys, regardless of what position you have, to figure out how to play together. Check and check with this Denver Nuggets team. So the fact that they've all kind of figured it out, I mean, you're watching two players now get triple doubles in the same game. And I think that's really cool
Yes.
because normally a guy who gets a triple double, he has to dominate the ball as he should. You're now saying, well, wait a minute. What kind of offense are they running where Jamal Murray will score 17 to 20 points, Russell will get a triple double, and Jokic will get 30, 12, and 14? Like, I'm watching the game trying to understand what kind of system they're running and they're winning and doing all of that. So I think it's really cool that they've kind of figured out something. When is the last time we've seen two guys get a triple double in the same game? In multiple games. I think they've done it about 2 or 3 times this year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
And-
I think
and-
I think that's really cool, by the way.
Well, I also think Westbrook's defense is hugely underappreciated as well. The impact and the energy that he's given them on the defensive side of the ball is something that this team desperately needed, especially with the loss of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who arguably was their best perimeter defender. So now they've got Aaron Gordon back in the lineup. They've gone 7-3 over the last 10. They're up to 4th in the Western Conference after somewhat of a shaky start. And they seem to be trending in the right direction here. So
And don't discount Russell looking around, knowing that, like you said, this is year 17 for him. This might be his last and definitely best shot at trying to get to an NBA final and win a championship. Because he's got the best player, arguably, in the league in Nikola Jokic alongside him. And he got guys who've been there and won a championship. Russell is trying to get back to an NBA final, see if he can win a championship. And so I'm sure that is a huge driving factor for him. And he's doing any and everything he has to do to make that a reality.
So I want to ask Scott this. Scott, this is the first time that I can say, you know, I've been watching Russell his entire career. This is the first time I've seen Russell defer to another player
Right.
in his career.
Right.
Well, can you comment about that, Scott?
The interesting thing, when I've always studied Russell, the things that made Russell great were the things that never allowed him to defer in the first place. He is such an alpha personality, and he has believed throughout his entire career that nobody works harder, nobody's tougher than he is. So why am I to defer? Now, as he's gone through the league, and now we get here to year 17, and he knows that he's got only a very small time left to play, wisdom starts to kick in. And it probably took going to a team like the Denver Nuggets. You've got a 3-time MVP sitting there on your team, been there, done that. And by the way, who's been a champion? Russell's picked up enough wisdom to understand and say, you know what? I got to take a back seat to this guy over here. Let me figure out how I can fit in and enhance this team, because it's not about me individually anymore. I believe he also wants to change a little bit of the narrative about him. Oh, you can't win with Russell, or Russell is too selfish, or whatever the case may be, which I think has been a misguided criticism on him personally. I haven't worked with him, but just from what I see. So I think wisdom has kicked in with him, and he's gone to the right situation with a great player who's in his prime, and he's ready to win. And so that's the evolution. It's taken some time of a great player like Russell, again, whose greatest strength sometimes could have been his greatest weakness, in terms of him just being stubborn and just going 100 miles an hour at all times without taking a step back and understanding that deferring in the game from time to time could be helpful. I think he's fully there now, in the right place to do that. So it's going to be fascinating to watch them in the playoffs too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. We have a question here from Bleed Green. He says, what kind of potential issues are the OKC Thunder going to create for themselves with 5 first-round picks and a second-round pick in the next draft? It's a great problem to have or a potential headache down the road. Would love to hear Mr. Perry's thoughts on this. Please answer without mentioning KD, Russ, or the beard.
Without mentioning,
The team that they had to break up in
yeah,
2012, 2013.
they will be able to figure out. You'd rather have all of those picks to figure out. You could trade them off, push them down the line to trade for picks years out, because there's always going to be teams wanting to get in to current drafts if you're not able to add anybody. Because look, OKC, this roster that you see now, it's pretty much going to be their team, with the exception of a tweak here or there at the back end of the rotation, probably. And so maybe one year they utilize a draft pick to start to put another player into that development chain, because what's going to happen as years move forward and this team continues to win and play well, there will be players on their roster. And I'm not talking about the top end guys. I'm not talking about Shea. I'm not talking about Jalen Williams, who BJ talked about earlier. I'm not talking about Chet Holmgren. But there may be other guys, whether it be a Cason Wallace or an Isaiah Joe, and those guys who show that they can contribute to winning teams like they're doing right now, and play a key role for this team, that when they become free agents, may price themselves out of being able to stay in OKC, and now you're looking to fill the void with those guys. They're not there yet. I mean, Wallace, I believe, is just in his second year. Isaiah Joe may be in his third or fourth year. But that's what you'll start. They'll have those picks to start looking at the trajectory when those guys are going to become free agents. Make sure, okay, let's draft their potential replacement if we're not able to re-sign them. Or, like I said, you can trade those picks. So, like, say, if they're going into the 2025 or 26 draft and they got a few first-round picks and there's no one there that they really would want to add, somebody would want to come get that pick. You trade it for a pick down the line, a future pick. That's what it's about. So they're in a very advantageous situation. And last thing, they go through the playoffs this year. Depending upon where they get knocked out or if they win it all, whatever transpires through the playoffs, you can utilize a lot of those picks, package them, and maybe trade for a player if you happen to fall short and feel like you need something. So a lot of options there for OKC Thunder. No reason for any OKC Thunder fans to panic right now. They're going to be around for a solid 8 to 10 years, I believe.
And
it's currently constructed.
And with those 5 picks in the first round this year, you can solidify all of those picks to just move up to a higher spot.
That as well.
I think also if the Sixers pick,
everyone has the option to move up, right, Scott? Isn't that how the draft goes?
Yeah. Everybody always talks about moving up, but see, there's no question about it. And the problem with that, when people talk about that, you got to have a dance partner up top that's willing to do that, that's willing to move off a good pick. Now, this draft, from what I understand and what I can see early, it's going to be fairly top heavy. There's going to be 4 to 5 players that teams are really high on in that space. So to get into that stratosphere, you're going to have to not only give up picks, but you're going to have to give up an existing all-star player maybe for teams to consider that. Because otherwise, all these teams that we just talked about that you say are tanking, not trying to win games, they're putting all their eggs in that basket. Then, there's Cooper Flagg there. There's Dylan Harper. There's Ace Bailey. All these names out here. So that's what they're supposedly playing for now.
And I will say this, because I know Scott can't say it, but I'll say it. And you better know who to draft once you move up there. Okay?
You say that again. That's what
now, all of this, we can move, and we have these draft picks, and we can do all these things. Let's not forget now, Jokic and these guys are going in the second round. So, again, it sounds good feel
Yes.
good. You have all of these draft picks.
Be-
Draft picks don't play.
And
Yeah.
you
Right.
also,
Draft picks,
like,
I'm gonna say right now, it's, I mentioned those three names, but for the most part, they're still nameless great faces. You don't
yeah.
know. You
You,
don't know
you
what
don't know
they
who
right.
they
You don't know who
also
are.
they're
have
gonna,
to,
you don't know who they're gonna be once they make it to the NBA.
And
You know,
Scott, you have to develop them once you get them.
no
you
question.
also have to know that you're not being finessed by the team that's moving down in the draft. Because I remember when the Celtics had the number 1 pick, they moved back to 3 in exchange for the third pick and a pick from next year from the Philadelphia 76ers, because the Celtics knew that the Lakers, who had 2, were going to take Lonzo. And they knew that whoever had the number 1 pick was going to take Markel Fultz. So Jason Tatum would be waiting for them at 3. And they may as well get another pick the year after with it. And looking back, maybe the Sixers don't make that trade after all. But yeah, the other part of that question was one for each of us. The first part is, BJ, would you rather see a Lions Super Bowl or Detroit Pistons NBA championship?
He's seen a Pistons championship before.
Mo, you forgot. Real name, no gimmicks here. That's not a question. Go ahead, Mo. You can answer that. You can answer that.
Exactly.
No gimmicks. What you mean?
Yeah.
Which one would I rather see?
Hey, Mo, that's not a hard Jeopardy question. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other one they sent in, it was for Scott, a Steelers Super Bowl or a Knicks championship, but I think that's too easy of an answer. Let me ask you this, Scott.
Okay, right.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
See the Steelers win a Super Bowl, or you be a part of the front office that wins the championship next season?
Oh, I got to take myself being part of the front office and winning the championship. As much as look, I've seen the Steelers win 6 titles, and as much as I want them to win a 7th, I would love to have that one experience one more time as a front office executive to win a championship. So, no, to answer the question,
and I would say this about Scott. I would love to see Scott, because he's done that before.
Yes.
I would love to see Scott actually have an opportunity to build and challenge for a championship. Winning a championship requires a lot of things.
No question.
I would love to see Scott have the opportunity at this stage of his career, with the wisdom and knowledge and experience that he has, to have an opportunity in today's game to build it and see it all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to see him because, listen, without a lot of times as an executive, that's part of the business. You start something and you don't get a chance to finish it.
No question.
Okay. You may get drafted as a player, you get as an executive, circumstances may say such and such. I would love to see Scott have an opportunity to finish it all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as you know, nothing's guaranteed in this league, but to me, that would be the greatest, most fulfilling thing, because Scott has acquired all of this wisdom over the years. For instance, when he first came to Detroit, I just happened to have followed his entire career from day one. And then he went on and he went to, was it Seattle, Scott? Was it Seattle?
Yeah, Seattle. Yes. Seattle with Sam Presti.
Before they, OKC. Mm-hmm. And then he went to Orlando when you lose a Dwight Howard. Mm-hmm. And then you got to rebuild it and do from scratch. And then he goes to the Knicks, and every opportunity faces challenges. And you got to get the books right and draft right and all of those things.
Yes.
So I would love for Scott to say,
which team would, if you was to send Scott Perry off to any of the teams in the NBA right now and you had your pick, which team would you put him in?
Normally you got to find a fit, that fits, your personality. Okay. Scott's personality is Scott. First and foremost, I can say this. He's going to draft toughness. He's not going to get a guy and then make him tough. He's going to draft That's one thing.
That doesn't work too well when you try to do it that way.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Well, he's going to come into our culture and all of a sudden. No,
He's
Scott is
tough,
going to
yeah.
draft toughness. Now, that I know. Okay.
Mhm.
What city? I would think at this stage of Scott's career, Scott has an idea of how he wants to play. Scott already has an idea of the type of athletes he wants. And Scott has an idea now, I think, where he is very aware of the group that's necessary, that everyone has the same collective thought, right? I don't think it really matters where he would be right now.
Do you know
Now,
where I want to see
earlier,
Scott?
no, but earlier I would have said East Coast because
Mm-hmm.
Scott's personality is more, I could see him in a, blue collar, kind of like Detroit. I
Mm-hmm.
thought if given an opportunity for a place like a Detroit, that would have been a great. However, at this stage, I think Scott just needs the ownership group
Yeah.
who has a plan and be able to see it all the way through. I think that's where you get to that point in your career. So I think someone is going to give Scott, this young man, an opportunity to carry it out, not with the idea of that we're going to deliver a championship, but the idea that you're going to compete.
I want to see Scott in Portland because I know Chauncey can coach. I just feel like the right roster hasn't been put in place to make that happen.
Well, that's tough. We want to make
And
sure
then we're
that,
bringing back the Detroit connection from that 04 team.
well, here's the thing. We want to make sure we have to abide by the principle of we don't talk about jobs when people are currently there. And that's what I'm saying. We have to say the following, right? Because we want to make sure that we acknowledge what it is. If Scott has an opportunity, he will be, and I'm not just saying it because he's here, he will be the best. Not one of the best, he will be the best. Because now of his ability to watch the games and watch the league, not from the perspective of just his team and what his team needs. So, Scott, I don't know how, is this your first time, Scott, for 2 years, right? In the last, 25 or 30 years that you've been able to do this, right?
Last 36 years.
Something?
This is
Yeah,
my
30
first time out. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, my
So-
whole professional career. Yeah, no question. And the big thing is, and you touched on it, it doesn't matter location. It's really all about the people that are there. And you're talking about ownership groups where it starts with where vision and the ability to be able to come in and work your plan, develop your plan, and see your plan all the way through. That's the most important thing. So, willing and ready, and have the faith that that will happen, and know beyond the shadow of a doubt that would put together a team that is highly competitive.
Yeah, that's
and it's
it.
going to be and singly focused on getting better each and every year, and a team that ownership and the fan base will be very proud of.
In the community. And then Mo's going to have to change his team, and Mo's going to jump ship.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
if the check is right.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I can never change my team, but
Yeah, you will. You'll do it. You'll do it.
I want to see what happens if Scott becomes in charge of a team and they start shooting a lot of threes. I want to see what BJ has to say about that on the podcast.
Oh, no, it's not. That's not a podcast. That's a phone call. That's not a
Exactly.
podcast.
Exactly.
That's not a no. The podcasting is only that's just outside commentary.
I was watching the Celtics and Pelicans last night, right? The Celtics started like 0 from 7 from 3 and they're down by double digits to the Pelicans.
Right.
I put my phone on do not disturb mode because I was like, there's no way I want BJ to ring me right now.
Nah, exactly.
I know what he's gonna say. I have to put it on do not disturb. I know what he's gonna tell me. And then luckily they managed to pull away with a win there. But it It was tough.
It was a 1 point win, right?
Yeah,
No?
yeah, it should have been done, but there was like a 5 second violation on it inbounds, and yeah, it's been a rough stretch for the Celtics. I think they're like 6-7 over the last however many games. It's been
Your Celtics just have to get to the playoffs healthy.
yeah.
Then they will know the task at hand once they get back to the playoffs. And whether it's home or on the road, they understand what is required to go the full distance. So I wouldn't panic too much right now.
I'm not panicking. I'm dead. I'm chilling. I ain't stressing. I ain't stressing out. You know what I mean? We here. It's all good. We're gonna be back for another week of the Hoop Genius podcast. Scott, we appreciate as always for joining us. And we got to make sure that we really
look forward
appreciate
to
these moments because
I look forward to this every Monday. It's a blast.
oh, for real.
And
for
it's
real,
nothing like talking just real basketball with real basketball people. Like I said, we got the 3-time NBA champion on here who has tons of wisdom. And I, watched him grow over the years. And then Mo, getting to know you over these last couple of years and your take and wisdom for the game. You truly do watch a lot of basketball and love conversing going back and forth with you about the game.
Hell yeah. We appreciate you.
Hey, Mo, before we exit.
Oh no.
I had a real question though. I was like,
okay.
You think Scott would really come on with this once he becomes GM again? You think
I was just about to say we got to appreciate these shows because if when he gets another GM job, he's still going to be on the show.
Well, hey, I mean, he's got to come on with this. He can't he can't give us the stiff arm, can he?
Come on. I'll say it to you right now. I will be on here as much as you need me to be on.
Oh, that's all. That's all I wanted.
Mo,
we're part of the
come on now.
We just want to make sure we're part of the package.
No, I'm not that sometimey individual. You guys know that.
Mo.
BJ knows that. So no, this is
from the NBA Finals. Hey,
from the NBA
exactly. Mo, you heard it now, Mo. From the NBA Finals on the Hoop Genius podcast.
We ready.
You know the vibes.
Exactly.
Mo. We ready.
Mo, can you see this, Mo? Listen to this, Mo. Mo, we're gonna go into the game, you and I. Mm-hmm. And how in the first game of the playoffs, the teams will put out T-shirts and they have a little slogan, right?
Yeah.
Mo,
every T-shirt in the arena.
You know the vibes.
Exactly.
All right, Scotty, you got to get us there. You got to get us to the NBA Finals. I can see it already. Man. Appreciate you guys. Make sure if you're listening, subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. And have a great week. And I fear that this will be the final week of normalcy before BJ's Detroit Lions get underway in the NFL playoffs. I don't know. That's
next Sunday.
After next weekend. I don't know if BJ's even going to be around to do the podcast, or he's just going to be out, going crazy.
I'm going to do the podcast live from New Orleans. I already got that set
up. The Lions play the Commanders next Sunday.
Yeah. Hey,
3 o'clock.
Hey, who is Magic going to be rooting for? Hey, Irving, if you're listening, we know you're listening.
Is it
Irving? Now you're from Michigan.
But so he owns the Commanders, or what's the deal?
He's part owner. He's part of the
owner now.
Okay.
I want to know how Irvin Johnson is going to walk into Ford Field rooting for the opposing team. Irving?
It's serious. He's using this government name. He didn't say Magic.
It's serious. It's serious. So
Irvin's got to make this decision.
Irvin's got to make this decision, not Magic. Now, Magic, we know what Magic will do. But Irving, now you don't want to come into Ford Field. This is serious stuff here. This is serious. So
yeah,
great week. That was a great win, by the way, against the Buccaneers.
Oh man, yeah, no.
Yeah, this
That,
is
look,
great.
that young quarterback,
Ooh,
Jalen,
now he can play.
is
He can play.
he's the real deal, man. He is
Yeah,
really really good.
he.
They're going to be in the playoffs for years to come.
Yes,
So we talked
yes.
about OKC
He,
being around for a while. The Commanders are going to be around for a while when you got a quarterback like this who's lifted a team that I think only won 4 games last year.
yeah, and
And
he's
so,
that's big. That was big time effort. Big time effort.
mhm.
But you know what? It's time now. It's time.
Time. Oh yeah, the
Hey,
Lions are
hey,
rested.
Is it
hey,
time
hey,
for a NFL spin-off show next season?
Hey,
hey.
I'm so if the Lions win the championship, it may be Mo.
I'm worried because I ain't never seen BJ drink in his life. I never seen BJ smoke. I'd have if the Lions win though, I don't know if BJ's gonna go off the rails. I don't know what's gonna happen. Every time I see BJ, he's
I'm gonna do what
composed,
all champions do.
sensible, cigar and champagne.
See, everyone wants to look forward to the celebration. Well, I look forward to competing every year for the championships. I'm addicted to that. That's my addiction. Oh, we got one? Guess what?
Going for 2. I knew.
I'm going for 2.
That.
Just make sure you get number 1 first. Just make sure you get number 1 first.
Hey. No, I can tell you this. We know the assignment. Getting to the playoffs wasn't the assignment.
Oh, no question. No.
Yeah,
You were one game away from Super Bowl last year.
Yes.
And then who beat you in that game?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Is that Taylor
We
Swift?
were one half. We were one half away. I called Scott in the half. Scott,
yeah, because the
everybody.
Lions were leading at the half last year. So
we know the assignment. We know the assignment.
San Francisco on here this year then?
No, San Francisco didn't even make the playoffs this year. They had a lot of injuries.
Oh, they fell off. Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, we know the assignment. We got our assignment. We didn't come here to get to the playoffs. We didn't come here we came here for one thing. I see y'all down in New Orleans. If y'all don't know what the assignment is, we got our assignment. We didn't come here. Hey, Scott knows that type of pressure. You didn't come here to get to the playoffs.
We'll see.
Absolutely.
We're going to see.
And I hope for your sake that your Lions win. I hope for your sake that they do. But the podcast is going to keep rolling regardless.
Hey.
Just know if they lose, you can't call in sick to the podcast. You know what I mean? Can't tell me I'm not in the mood. Scott showed up today. His team lost. So just know.
Now, it's one thing. See, Scott is from Detroit. Now, he roots for the Steelers, but he's from Detroit. There's one thing about anybody from Detroit. We're gonna show up now. we can't promise we're gonna have a great performance.
I know. We watched the Pistons last year.
Our Pistons are what, they're in 10th place or something right now?
No, they're better.
BJ, your Pistons are in 8th.
Pistons in 8th.
They're above 500.
Yeah, they're 20 and 19.
Yeah, man, that's wow. That's
So
great.
almost midway point, game over 500.
Okay. All right.
All right, BJ and I will be back tomorrow. Subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. And most importantly, until next time, get buckets.